Brakes on these Fiestas aren't all that great. For an ST model, I just feel like they should be better. Larger disc and bigger pads. Upgrade the calipers as well. I've got no brakes at all. Oh my God. I don't know about you, but I've always thought that the standard brakes on these Fiestas aren't all that great. Especially not for a car with an ST badge on it. Now, if you feel like your brakes are performing worse than usual, then it might just be that your discs and pads need changing, or if you feel like your brakes have gotten a bit spongy, then maybe they just need bleeding. But I did discs and pads all round on this car when I first got it, and to be honest, they're holding up pretty well. Now, some of you that have been with us for a while will probably remember that I did have some issues with the rears a little while back. One of the rear calipers seized and was sticking, and I also had a leak from one of those calipers after I tried to rebuild them. And in the end, I did just end up getting two brand new calipers for the rear, and they're looking pretty good. But as you can see, look, the disc is holding up really well, and when I replaced the calipers, because I was having some issues, I also put brand new pads on the back again. And because I'd actually been changing calipers, obviously I bled the whole system, and that was only a little while ago. So I really don't think that's what's going on here. Plus, I've not noticed the brakes have gotten any worse. They've just always been pretty weak. Like I said, for an ST model, I just feel like they should be better. So in this video, we're going to be doing a big brake upgrade. Well, at least on the fronts. Now, there's plenty of options when it comes to upgrading the fronts. I don't know if there's so much for the backs, but I don't think they'd make that much of a difference, even if we did upgrade the rear brakes on the back. Because although I was having all those issues, they didn't really affect how this car performed braking-wise. So today we're just going to be doing the fronts, but there are quite a few options when it comes to upgrading the front brakes. And when I say upgrading the front brakes, I'm not just talking different discs and pads, I'm talking new calipers as well. One popular option is to replace the carriers with the carriers of an ST170, meaning that you can run a 300mm brake disc rather than the 280mm, which comes as standard. But the ST170 uses a very similar, if not the same, brake caliper. It's just that the carrier is larger and you have to do a few little extra bits to mount the carrier on there. It's not just a straight swap, but you just have to bore with a hole in the hub out from 10mm to 12mm. So the ST170 upgrade lets you run a larger disc and bigger pads, meaning you get a bigger contact area between the disc and the pad. But the piston inside the caliper, because they're the same calipers, is going to be the same diameter. So you're only going to get the same amount of braking force. Now, I'm not saying you won't get any improvements doing it that way, but what I'm saying is it won't be as good as if you can improve the braking force from the caliper. So we're going to upgrade the calipers as well. Now, when it comes to caliper upgrades, there are plenty of aftermarket options, and the Sky really is the limit with that, especially if you're spelling Sky M-O-N-E-Y. But for this upgrade, we are actually going to be using Ford OEM parts. We're just not going to be doing the usual ST170 upgrade. Well, not all the parts are going to be from an ST170. I'll explain. So the Focus ST170 gives us that bigger brake disc and bigger pad contact area that we want, but we had to use the same caliper that comes on the ST150, so we don't get any more braking force. Now, a Ford Mondeo ST220 has a bigger brake caliper and ultimately a bigger piston diameter, meaning we'll get a lot more braking force if we were to go with that. But a Mondeo is 5 studs, so the discs won't fit on the Fiesta. But luckily, we can mix and match the two. So these are a set of brake calipers off a Mondeo ST220 and a set of brake discs off an ST170 Focus. Now, I know these are looking a little bit rough, but I've checked them over and there's no lip or anything like that on the disc. So I think we can clean these up and probably get these back to looking, well, a hell of a lot better than they do now anyway. If not, I'll just get some new discs. But I thought, seeing as they came with the calipers, I'd pick them up anyway. The calipers themselves, so I bought these a little while ago. These have been in my shed for probably about 6 months maybe, but I know these are going to do quite a lot for the car because Ash actually runs these on his car. I'm not sure if you've seen those in one of the videos we've done recently. We've done a couple of videos on Ash's car, so maybe you spotted them, but no one said anything about it. But yeah, Ash runs those and he said they do definitely make a difference, and in a minute I'm going to tell you why. But first of all, I'd like to thank Carwin, who I picked these up from. I remember when I picked them up and he said, I've seen this car before. I don't think he was quite a subscriber at that point, but he recognised the car. He had seen it in a couple of videos. So thank you, mate, for hooking me up with those if you are still watching. And Roger, who kindly had my front arms sandblasted, the front lower control arms that we did a couple of videos back, and has also hooked me up with quite a few parts. Well, he also got these sandblasted for me so that these are ready for me to paint. As you'll have seen, the rears were painted a long time ago, but the fronts, yeah, well, I just never got around to it. So this gives us a great opportunity for me to catch the front brakes up with the rears, at least in terms of how they look. So I've got some yellow K2 caliper paint so I can paint these new front calipers the same as I've done the rears. I've got full brake caliper rebuild kit for both the front calipers. So everything is going to be nice, new and fresh. And I've also got new mounting bolts for the carriers. Unfortunately, there is a little bit of modification that needs to happen in order to get the carriers for these calipers on to the ST150, same as with the ST170, but we'll get onto that later on. But for now, I'm going to tell you why I was so keen to go for the Mondeo calipers over just using the original ones on this with the 170 upgrade. Now, the standard ST150 piston is 54 millimeters in diameter. The ST220 piston is 57 millimeters in diameter. So only a 3 mil difference, which doesn't sound like a lot, but when you calculate the actual braking force applied to the piston, then it's actually quite a noticeable difference. Now, I'm just going to use some basic calculations, but force is equal to the pressure of the brake fluid supplied to the caliper multiplied by the surface area at the base of the piston that fluid is acting on. Now, when I googled the average working pressure of a brake caliper, then I was looking at anything between 30 bar to well up over 100 bar, obviously depending on how hard you're pressing that brake pedal inside the car. But in this example, it doesn't matter which piston we're talking about, we're going to be getting the same supplied pressure, so I just picked an arbitrary value of 40 bar. So we've got our supplied pressure, now we just need to work out the surface area that the brake fluid is going to be acting on at the base of the piston. We calculate that surface area by pi times the radius squared. The radius being half the diameter. So that gives us a surface area of 22.9 centimeters squared for the ST150 piston and a surface area of 25.52 centimeters squared for the ST220 piston. 40 times 229 gives us a total force of 9,160 newtons for the ST150, and then 40 times 255.2 gives us 10,208 newtons for the ST220. This gives us an additional 1,046 newtons, which is 11.42% improvement over standard. And if you can tell me where else you're going to get more than an 11% performance increase from just an extra 3 millimeters, then I'd love to hear it in the comments below. Right, let's get on and sort out those calipers. Now, like I said earlier, I have already had these sandblasted, but because they've been sat for a little while, they have got a little bit of surface rust on them, so I'm just going to clean that up really quickly. I've already done the rest of these. I've separated the calipers from the carriers, but as you can see, with a little bit more cleaning, they have come up really nice. So using a wire wheel attachment on my drill, I'm just going to give these a quick clean. And just like that, they're all clean and pretty much ready for paint. But there is one thing left to do, and that is to remove the old piston. I want to get this out here because I don't want to be fighting with it, trying to get it out once these are painted in case I scratch the freshly painted caliper. But you've got to admit, they are looking awesome, and I think the paint's really going to take well to these nice clean calipers. So let's get this piston out. Now, when I did the first one of these, I was fighting with it for a while, trying to use mole grips to pull it out or something to lever in behind the piston and pop it out, but that was just never going to happen. And then I remembered something. You can actually pop out brake caliper pistons with compressed air. So I got an old piece of brake line that's just been cut. This was used in here for the sandblasting, just stop anything getting into the hole. But I'm just going to wind that in there. And then I don't have an air compressor, but what I do have is a can of compressed air, which I've used for airbrushing and stuff like that in the past. So I thought this might come in handy. So I'm just going to tighten that little screw until you start to hear the air coming out. And I'm just going to wedge that in there. Turn up the pressure a little bit. And slowly but surely, that's forced the piston out. Easy. Now, the dust seal on these Mondeo calipers is attached to a metal ring pressed into the housing. It can be quite tricky to remove, but I started off by using the thinnest screwdriver I had, knocking that in the gap between the housing and the metal ring, and then slowly working my way up with a thicker screwdriver each time until I could get enough in there to bend the ring inwards and then pull it out from the caliper. And then I just used a small pick to remove the fluid seal, being careful not to scratch the groove that it sits in. Then I just gave the inner bore of the caliper a quick clean with some brake cleaner and a fine abrasive pad. Right, okay, so the calipers are all clean and ready for paint, so I'm going to head down to my new regular painting spot, down to my parents, get these things painted, and then it's just a case of rebuilding the calipers, and then we can fit the new upgraded front brakes. Actually, that's not true. I've still got to clean up these rusty old things, but we'll get on to that. Now, I absolutely love painting with this K2 caliper paint. It is absolutely awesome, especially on clean bare metal. You don't need any sort of primer, and you don't need to clear coat it either. It was recommended to me by Joe Linden after the horrendous job I did with the Simply Sprays one. So yeah, K2 caliper paint, definitely go and check it out. I'll leave a link in the description so you can find it if you want to do this yourself. Right, okay, so that is the calipers painted, but I'm not done for tonight. Now I need to go and sort out those brake discs. So I'll pick these up in the morning when they're nice and dry, but the brake discs are going to need overnight for what we're doing. So let's head back up to my place and I'll show you what we're going to do with them to clean them up. Okay, so we're back at Mend It Mod It HQ, and I've just realised, and I've just actually posted this on my Instagram. So if you're not following me on there, go follow me on Instagram. But I've kind of given myself blonde highlights, if you can see that, if the camera's picking that up. I think it's just from all the dust and overspray from what was in the air while I was painting those calipers. But anyway, nevertheless, we are back and it's time to sort out those rusty old brake discs. So I was thinking these are going to be pretty hard to clean up. Now, normally this would be a really labor intensive job. I know you can get discs resurfaced professionally, and I'm pretty sure there are plenty of DIY methods as well for like sanding these back or however you would go about doing it. But it's currently the middle of the night and I'm not really up for any more labor intensive stuff. But luckily tonight, we're actually going with something that I can just leave overnight. We're actually going with a chemical process in the form of a rust remover dip or rust bath using this hammerite stuff. I've seen people use this and other stuff on the internet, but basically we're just going to leave that, mix it with water, leave the brake discs in that overnight, and it should hopefully clean these up. I don't know. It might work, it might not. But the discs came with the calipers, so I'm going to give it a go. If I have to get new discs, then so be it. But I thought I'd just give this a go because that rust dip was actually quite cheap and you get quite a lot out of it once you've mixed it with water. So let's get them in there, go to bed, and then pick this up tomorrow and see how they're doing. Now, this stuff's meant to be mixed in a ratio of 9 parts water to 1 part of this rust dip. But as you guys saw earlier, I'm sure someone will call me out on some sort of calculation that I did wrong. So for ease of maths with this, I just went for a litre of water for every 100 ml of the rust solution. So I started off with 3 litres of water to 300 ml of the solution, but this didn't quite cover the brake disc, so I decided to add another litre of water, another 100 ml of the solution. Still didn't quite cut it, so we just threw the whole bottle of solution in and 5 litres of water. And then once the disc was completely covered, I could just leave it to sit overnight. And just like that, it's the next day. It's probably had about 18 hours sitting in here, so we're going to get this out and just see what it's actually done. We're going to get that out of there. Smells quite bad. We're going to put it into another container, and then under running water, just with a little brush, I'm just going to give these a light clean and just see how much it's actually removed. So I'm going to clean this up and then I'll show you how it's comparing to the other one, because I have to do these one at a time. So we'll clean this one up and see the difference before and after, and then we'll decide whether or not we're actually going to use these. Okay, so I've cleaned off that disc, I've dried it, and I've hit it with some brake cleaner, and you know what? It's actually come out looking really good. But yeah, I'm going to run with these for now, I think, after I've done the other one. Like I said, I'll have to do these one at a time because that's the only container I've got, and I didn't have enough of this stuff to do both at once. But I think that is one hell of a difference just from soaking this overnight and then giving it a clean down. So I'm going to get this one in and soak it tonight. And I'll catch up with you tomorrow and hopefully everything will be done. The calipers will be dry and then I'll be ready to install these new brakes, sort of new brakes, on the car. Okay, so it is the following day and I'm pretty much ready to go. The calipers are looking awesome. They are fully dried now, and I've gone ahead and popped in the new fluid seal. I've put the new dust seal on the piston and pressed the piston into the housing. I've also fitted the new guide pins with fresh silicone grease and new rubber dust boots. So this lot is pretty much all ready to go. The disc is looking really good. It's held up quite well, so we're definitely going to go with these at least for now. And then what I really like to do is I want to show you the difference in the size of the pads. So these are the new pads, the Mondeo pads that are going on. So I want to show you the difference in size once I've got these ones off, so we can see just how much more contact area we're actually going to have. I haven't got a way of measuring it, but there's definitely going to be a lot more contact area. You can see that already, and that coupled with the 11% increased braking force from the piston, I think is really going to help this car stop a whole lot better. And to top it all off, I've also got some braided brake lines to go on the front to match the ones that I've got on the rear. These are from Moto, and if you don't really understand what braided lines are all about, basically they should expand less than the standard rubber lines, meaning that less of that force, extra force that we're now going to be pushing to the caliper, is going to be lost through the expansion of the brake line, because like I said, these shouldn't expand as much as the rubber ones. So it's time to get this all fitted, but first I've got to remove the original stuff. Okay, so now the original brakes are removed. What I need to do is drill out these two holes in the hubs to 12mm. So I've got a 12mm drill bit, and then I'm just going to go nice and slow and drill these out so that they're wide enough to accept the bolts to mount the new carriers. Oh, and just quickly, I said I'd show you the difference between the two pads. So we've got the ST150 pad on the left, and this is the new Mondeo pad on the right. As you can see, much more surface area there, so hopefully a lot better braking. Like I said before, coupled with that stronger piston and the braided brake lines as well, we should really notice a difference with these brakes. Okay, so that's the Mondeo big brake upgrade completed, and first up, before anything else, they just look so much better. Now that we've caught the fronts up with the rears in terms of them being yellow, like they just stand out so much more, and obviously they're much bigger calipers and bigger discs, and you really notice it too. Now I've already gone ahead and bled the brakes off camera, and I didn't really want to show you that because this video has been quite long already. Well, at least I didn't want to show you all of it. Right, I wasn't going to film bleeding the brakes, but my dad's here helping me. I told him to press on the brakes. Nothing seemed to be happening. I tried spinning the caliper, or the disc. It spun, and I thought, I've got no brakes at all. What were you doing?
I thought it was an automatic.
He was pressing the clutch. But I couldn't let my dad get away with that one. Now, as well as the new brakes looking awesome, I've already taken them out on a little drive just to see how they're performing, and oh my God. Honestly, it's like if it had an anchor to the car, not just upgraded front brakes. Now, unfortunately, there isn't an awful lot I can physically show you on camera, so you're just gonna have to take my word for it. These brakes are amazing. It stops so firmly, like, that is mad. They're so good. But I did explain earlier in this video, you know, the reasons why I've gone with this brake setup, and for me, it really has shown, like those figures I gave you earlier, I think it's gone above and beyond that, so I'm really happy with this big brake upgrade. And I think for the effort I've gone to as well, that deserves a like or even a subscribe if you haven't already. But anyway, for this video, it is time to end. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.